Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm on a work trip again in San Francisco, California, and it is a beautiful day here. It's shining bright blue skies, sunshine, 60 degrees, and I did a little bit of walking around, and despite what many media sources would have you believe, this is still one of the most beautiful and romantic cities in the United States, and I'm very happy to be here today. So I'm going to talk to you about a set of fragrances that I got from Santa Maria Novella. This is a discovery kit with 8 fragrances, and I also am going to talk about 4 additional fragrances that I got along the way. And this is a very old Italian house that I ended up liking a lot. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Santa Maria Novella, then stick around. Okay, so for a little bit of background, I got 2 samples from this house from their newer collection, which is their eau de parfum collection, and they really intrigued me, so I went ahead and bought this discovery set directly from the Santa Maria Novella website, I think. And it was very cheap, I think $30, and it comes with 8 fragrances. Something to note is that all of them are said to be eau de cologne concentration, or a very low concentration of fragrance oils, but they don't wear like eau de colognes for the most part. They have a newer collection, which is more expensive. I wouldn't say it's like their exclusive line because it's not drastically more expensive than their regular line, but those are all eau de parfum concentration. This house was founded in, I guess, 1221 in Florence, Italy. And one thing that I really like about these fragrances, aside from them smelling very good and having a very unique DNA and point of view, is that they're also pretty affordable for the most part. So I think for 50 ml of these fragrances, it's about $100. And for 100 ml, I think it's about $150, which these days is right on par with most designer fragrances. So these are a pretty good value for money. The first fragrance I'm going to talk about today is Tobacco Toscano. This is actually my scent of the day. I wore it on the plane. The notes on this one are tobacco, bergamot, amber, birch, leather, and vanilla, sandalwood, gaiac, cedar, and musk. The first time I tried this one out, I wore it to bed because I wanted something kind of sweet, and I really didn't think anything of it. I think it had kind of like mostly gone away by the time I woke up. But today, wearing it again, I'm pretty impressed. This is a very soft, slightly floral tobacco scent. It reminds me a little bit of the soft floral nature of Versace's The Dreamer. Tobacco Toscano is powdery, airy, translucent. I've been wearing it for about 6 or 7 hours now, and one thing that I really like about it is that it has this extremely cozy, warm fall scent about it, while also being very elegant. Like, it's not sweet. I mean, it's a little bit sweet, but it's not a super thick, gloopy, syrupy kind of bomb of tobacco sexiness. The DNA of this house is very clean, soapy, airy, and you definitely get all that here. And I also think that this one might be one that if you are a tobacco fragrance person, you might not like it very much because it is sort of an airy, not smoky, not sweet, not seductive, not dark tobacco. It's kind of got a weird niche. That being said, I do think it'd be a very, very lovely tobacco for women who were seeking a tobacco scent. Okay, next up is this one. It's Melograno, and that means pomegranate. And I think this one gets a fair bit of love in the fragrance community. The notes on this one are bergamot, spices, and bitter orange in the top, pomegranate, ylang ylang, and rose in the mid, and at the base there's oak moss, labdanum, patchouli, and musk. This one could be surprising to folks because I think when you hear the name pomegranate or Melograno, you think it's going to be a fruity fragrance. But in reality, this is a very classic sheep fragrance, Chypre. I think it was actually released in the 60s or 70s. I guess a Chypre is based on a fragrance that has bergamot in the top, labdanum in the heart, and oak moss or patchouli in the base. And it's supposed to smell like woods, like the woods of the island of Cyprus, I guess, which is what sheep means in French. But This one definitely has that very classic sheep smell, especially in the base. You get this mossy, woody, green earthiness. The top is very nice and kind of spicy, and I really enjoy the heart, which has a lot of ylang ylang, and I actually do get the fruitiness. Smelling it again here on card, I'm reminded of the feeling I had when I was wearing it, which was that this smells to me like a classic sheep, but if you could have a sheep in the form of a bar of soap. So it has all of those earthy, mossy, leathery characteristics, but it's all just very clean and a little bit soapy, herbaceous. It's very nice, but it's not something that I would pick up. Okay, next up is Rosa Novella. This is a fairly recent release, if I'm not mistaken. I think 2021 or 2022. But the notes on this one are petitgrain and lemon, rose, jasmine, and gardenia in the heart, and in the base, patchouli, musk, cedar, and sandalwood. I give this one a full wearing, and while I liked it, I wasn't impressed with it. It is pretty basic. It's a rose patchouli, a fresh pink rose and patchouli combination. And it reminded me of a lot of stuff that I've smelled before. It reminds me of a little bit of Hippie Rose by Healy, which I love and which I have in my collection. And it also reminded me a lot of Paris Paris by Chanel. And it kind of has that same, not aquatic, but dewy rose feeling that over time fades to a woody patchouli base. It's nice, it's not sweet, and it again has that airy soapiness that a lot of these fragrances have, but overall I just found it a little bit forgettable. Next up is my absolute favorite from this Discovery set, and it's a surprising one. It's Freesia, and I think I've talked several different times on this channel about how Freesia is not my favorite note, but I'm coming to realize that it may be one of those things where having strong feelings about something one way or the other is an indicator of your interest in it. And maybe I'm starting to come around to Freesia. Maybe I'm starting to like Freesia. Anyway, the notes on this one are Freesia in the top, violet, rose, and western skunk cabbage in the mid, and musk and iris in the base. This one is just a really pretty floral scent, and it has that classic Freesia profile, which I find very hard to describe. To me, it's kind of like a springtime flower that's a little bit musky and heavy and scratchy. And this fragrance definitely has elements of all of those adjectives, but it smells really, really great. And I don't know what it is about it. It has a bunch of florals going on underneath it. I can tell there's jasmine, I get the violet, there's rose, and there's a big iris that smells really fantastic in this. I also think that there's something like ambergris, and it reminds me of a lot of fragrances that I've sampled recently that I liked, namely Feminine Pluriel by Maison Francis Kurkdjian, and also Spell on You by Louis Vuitton, both of which were surprising likes for me. But this one may even be better than both of those. And I don't know, I wore it one day to go do a really inane errand that I was not looking forward to. And I put this on and I went about my day doing this stupid errand, and this perfume made doing that dull task a lot better. So I may end up having to get a bottle of Freesia by Santa Maria Novella. The next one I'm going to talk about is Rosa Gardenia. This is another newer one, I think. The notes on this one are almond blossom, orange blossom, and bergamot in the top, gardenia, rose, fig leaf, and jasmine in the mid, musk, vanilla, and sandalwood in the base. This one is fairly interesting, I'll say. I get all of the notes, especially there's like an interesting almond blossom accord at the top, and a little bit of rose, but it's mostly about the gardenia here, like a buttery white, not necessarily tropical gardenia, more of a, I hate to say like a mature lady's gardenia, but that's kind of what I get from it. And I've mentioned before that, especially lately, I just can't take buttery white florals. There's something about them that I just find very oppressive and hard to wear. I did give this one a full wear, and it wasn't like something that I had to scrub off, but I just didn't enjoy it. I will say, though, that the combination of rose and gardenia felt interesting, and especially those notes being overlaid with this really cool almond blossom, and also in the heart, a nice fig leaf accord, made it feel creative and not necessarily like anything else I've ever smelled. It's just because of that gardenia that it's probably not something that I would ever wear. Next up is Acqua della Regina, and this one has a cool story. It's one of the oldest fragrances in the world, or I guess it's probably patterned after one of the oldest fragrances in the world, but I guess the pharmacy of Santa Maria Novella back in the day created a fragrance for Catherine de' Medici, and it was a fragrance created for her wedding to the King of France. And so that formula had been preserved by the monks who ran this pharmacy over time, and it's still available to purchase today. The notes on this one are citruses, neroli, and petitgrain in the top. In the heart, it lists neroli again, rosemary, lavender, and cloves, and in the base, patchouli and musk. I gave this one a full wear this weekend, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Aside from the backstory, which I find very nice, it has a feel about it which is, it feels very old, it feels ancient. And what I mean by that is it doesn't feel necessarily like a perfume. It kind of feels like a bunch of different herbal things that were like left to macerate in alcohol. It smells lovely. It's got this kind of traditional 4711 cologne opening, just kind of like neroli and citruses. And in the heart, it gets very astringent. I get a lot of the rosemary and the lavender. And the rosemary to me kind of gives this feel that's a little bit culinary, but also almost a little bit like insect repellent. And somebody on Base Notes told me that rosemary actually is an insect repellent. There's also a heavy dose of cloves in this, so if you don't like cloves, you probably won't like this. And the base is pretty much just like a light muskiness. I get a touch of patchouli. It's still got a neroli tinge to it, but it fades out very quickly. And I had actually like pretty big projection for the first hour, but then very quickly became a skin scent that was kind of like barely perceptible. But it's an interesting cologne, it's an interesting piece of history, and I enjoyed sampling it. Okay, these last two I haven't actually tried at all, so I'm gonna do a little bit of a first impressions on these. The first one is Angeli di Firenze, and that means Angels of Florence. The notes on this one are jasmine, cyclamen, ylang in the top, melon, iris, peach, and blackcurrant in the mid, and white musk, vanilla, and precious woods in the base. Okay, so smelling this one on card, it's interesting. It is a fruity fragrance for sure. It's much creamier than I thought it was going to be. On Fragrantica, I think it has like ozonic and aquatic as some of the top accords listed, but it's definitely not either of those to me. It definitely smells fruity, creamy, a little bit floral, and very much in keeping with the rest of the line. It's like a little bit soapy, probably, but I'm actually not finding it all that interesting off the card, but I wouldn't mind giving it a full wear to really test it. Okay, and the other one I hadn't tested yet was Potpourri. This one has notes of laurel, bergamot, bitter orange in the top, cloves, thyme, rosemary, and lavender in the mid, and Peru balsam, patchouli, and cedar in the base. First impression here is it's a bracing, spicy, green, herbal, slightly masculine, but again, kind of classic leaning and soapy fragrance. This one I really wouldn't mind trying on skin. It smells like it could be kind of like a halfway house between the Acqua della Regina herbal cologne and maybe the Melagrano Chypre style fragrance. It actually smells very much like a combination of those two things. Pretty nice, actually. And finally, I'm going to talk about 4 from the Eau de Parfum collection. I forgot to bring those individual carded samples with me on this trip, but I'll try to throw up a picture of what each of them looks like. The first one is L'Iris, the Iris fragrance, and I believe that Santa Maria Novella had an Iris fragrance before that they discontinued when they released this Iris fragrance. This one has notes of neroli, Sichuan pepper, magnolia, jasmine, geranium, iris, musk, and ambergris. This one I enjoyed wearing a lot. It was a very pretty floral iris fragrance. It smelled much more modern than any of the fragrances in the traditional Discovery set. But uniquely, I thought that this one wore very light. It was a skin scent almost from the get-go. And I had just come off of sampling extensively Frederic Mall's Iris Poudre, and I like Iris Poudre better. So that was kind of my take on L'Iris. The next one I tried was called Magnolia, and Magnolia is also from this Eau de Parfum collection. It has notes of white rose and geranium, magnolia, jasmine, and champaca, which is a type of magnolia, and musk and amber in the base. This one I gave a full wear, and I had mixed feelings about it. I thought it was a really good magnolia fragrance. I liked it better than I liked Frederic Mall's Magnolia, which I tried recently. And I also liked it better than Cartier's Pure Magnolia, which I tried earlier this year. I think I kind of expected the rose magnolia combination because I think that's done pretty frequently. But it was kind of in the style of a heavy musk fragrance. Like it was I don't know how to describe it. It just wore very heavy on my skin and it was very musky, like laundry musk. So it felt a little bit cloying, but just a little bit. I don't know, it was weird because I thought it was a very nice fragrance, but something about the texture of it just really bothered me. That being said, it was actually kind of close in feel and texture to the Freesia fragrance, which I really, really liked. So who knows, maybe I was just being fickle, but that was the Magnolia one. The next one that I tried, when I sampled it, I was absolutely head over heels for it. Like it really, really impressed me. And it was Gelsomino, which is their jasmine fragrance. And again, I think they had a jasmine earlier on that they discontinued when they released this Eau de Parfum jasmine. But the notes on that one are bergamot, tangerine, and pink pepper, jasmine sambac, African geranium, and ylang, musk, and cedarwood. What I loved about this one was that it was very green, very fruity, like you got a big tangerine note, and very spicy. There was I love pink pepper in fragrances, and there was a lot of pink pepper with this. And there were all these little touches that were just so pretty. Like at each stage of development, there was something unexpected, sparkling, just really, really delightful about this fragrance. And when I wore it, I was like, oh, I gotta get a bottle of this. Like it was love at first sniff. But then I never came back to the sample. Like I never gave it a whole nother full wear, even though I meant to. So I definitely gotta go back and try it again because I loved it on first impression. And the last one that I tried was another love, actually. It's called Bizarria. And Bizarria is, I guess, a hybrid fruit. It's like a bergamot mixed with a citron. Like they don't cross-pollinate them. They meld like a bergamot onto a citron rootstock and the fruit comes out looking like a Frankenstein. It's pretty cool. The notes on Bizarria are bitter orange, neroli, timur pepper, orange blossom, davana, and ginger in the heart, and musk and cedar in the base. I really, really liked this one and I wore through my entire sample, and it kind of was similar to Gelsomino in that at each stage of development, it had something that was really unique. It had really cool notes. It had a lot of things about it that I liked, in that it was spicy, it was green. There's a beautiful ginger note, which I always love ginger mixed with lemon. And the Timor pepper, I don't know if I was imagining this, but I got kind of like a Sichuan pepper feeling out of it, that like nose tingling feeling. There's also Davana, and I used to think that Davana was like in the Cypriol family, like papyrus, those harsh Middle Eastern notes. but it's actually, I guess, more like wormwood or absinthe. And it just lent this very nice herbal, unusual facet to the fragrance, and I really enjoyed that. It dries down to just a very simple, musky cedar kind of base, but I wore that fragrance several times and I actually got compliments on it twice, which is always a nice way to reinforce that you like a fragrance. Anyway, folks, those are my thoughts on 12 fragrances from Santa Maria Novella. I had a ton of fun sampling this house, and I really enjoyed its DNA and the point of view that these fragrances have. Let me know if you've tried these fragrances down in the comments. If you haven't, I would highly recommend splashing out the $30 or so that it takes to buy this discovery set. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.